hang on a minute, ladies, because I've now left my phone in the other room. So I won't be able to see what's going on. I will be back. Let's see. Right. StreamYard is telling me I have gone live, in spite of the fact that I have a message that says that it might have problems. So let me just quieten this down. Swap that to comments. Click into here. Right. Excellent. So we do appear to have gone live. I'm hoping that that means that we won't have a problem partway through the live stream. It's just that I have a message that says possible streaming issues on Facebook. It's at Facebook's end. If we do have a problem, ladies, I will come out and go back in as I did last week. Oh, excuse me, just while I just grab my brushes and some colour. Oh, because why not? Why not? Why not? There we are. Hi Connie, hi Josephine. So as ever, I've done quite a lot of prep. Good evening, Sheila. Hello, Mary Casey. Welcome, welcome. Now then, I am hoping that we don't have chaos this evening, but I'm never confident. But anyway, we're going to resolve it if we do. I have a plan. I know where I'm going. Because having a plan is always helpful, isn't it? So I have a little wooden box. And I know it's got glass in it. And we're going to deal with that because I don't particularly want the glass bit showing. And it won't matter in the grand run of things because of what I've got planned. And I've already taken off the hardware to make my life easier. Because why not? And those of you that can see, I have a mould next to me with a large number of cast pieces, cast in white rapid resin, and then painted with black primer paste. Cool. So let me just, there we are, we'll straighten that out. That's always better. So I have the wall lasser in antique. They do coloured and metallic. So this is the antique one in the shade umber or umbra, depending on which part of the world you are, which we're going to use as a stain, because why not? And that will allow us to see the wood through, which is always lovely. We don't need masses. So let's just carry on and give this all a little bit of an undercoat to start with. It's always helpful. Oh, she says, bashing her camera, so I apologise for doing that. There we are. You see, this just allows you to see all of that beautiful wood grain beautifully, which is always a plus side, isn't it? I can paint the back of this after the live, so don't worry. We'll not do the bottom, because why would we? So I trust that everyone is well today, and we'll see what goes on. Now, interestingly, my live last week got masses and masses and masses of views afterwards, and I have a sneaky suspicion that's because it went live directly to Facebook. And if that's the case, I shall perhaps think about going directly live in future. But there we are. Hi, Imrine. Welcome. Welcome. There's never a quite guaranteed in this world, is there? So, as you can see, the lasers are, or the antique lasers, are like a wood stain. And there's a fantastic range of colours. And I want my box to look a bit like a treasure chest, hence the fact that I've chosen the dark brown, and we're going to colour the inside in the same colour too, because why not? But you can see it just picks up all of that all that beautiful wood graining, where the different parts of the wood absorb the slightly differently. So it's a really nice way of just quickly and adding some detail. We're not going to leave it at that, obviously we're not, it's me. Since when am I ever going to leave everything in one layer? That's just not going to happen, is it? You know, and I'm going to put some paper on the bottom of that, but we will do the sides and the inside. So there we are, because why not? All adds to the fun of life. There we are. And then we've got my usual activities, multiple molds. Doesn't matter that the inside of that at the bottom has got a lot on it, because it's not going to stay like that. Because as I say, I am going to pop some paper on the bottom of there. I'm quite happy for the sides to be paint stained, but I don't necessarily want the... There we are. And I must make sure I get the front and the back of this when I'm adding things onto it, because that will make my life much easier. Not that it won't be sortable, but there we are. And as I say, I'm going to pop a piece of paper on the bottom of there, so that does not matter. There we are. Oh dear, I apologise. That's because of the messing with StreamYard when I was setting up. There we are. So let's just take this and do similar to the lid. Could I have done some of this ahead of the line? Well, possibly, but that defeats the purpose of an end-to-end project, and I know people like an end-to-end project, so that's okay. And I'm not going to be using the glass as glass anyway, so this could just as easily be a solid box as anything else. So no stress if I get paint on the glass and I can't wipe it off, because ultimately I'm not going to be using it anyway. I'm going to be covering that area entirely up, so it won't matter. There we are. So yeah, and a lot of the top of this is going to get covered. You can hear that piece of glass shaking around, quite rattling in the wind, but that's okay. There we are. Let's just make sure we have that covered, the bits that might well be seen. And as I say, the rest doesn't matter. I'm not expecting it necessarily to dry on the glass either, but that's okay. Let's just flick that over and paint the inside of here whilst we can, because why not? There we are. Well, as I say, I'm going to just pop a piece of paper over that just to resolve it. Now I could pop it underneath there and then it can be changed. So if we just lift those up, I can move that little bit about. There we are. Make sure I've got all of that covered, and then we can give this a little bit of a brush dry. There we are. And then we will be coming back to that. And as I say, that was the Lesueur gel in Umbra. Good evening, Faith. Thank you. Hello, crafty Scottish lass. Welcome to my Facebook Live. It's much appreciated. So there we are. Let's just give this a wee little bit of a brush dry, and we'll go from there. Oh, she says. And I know there's a piece of glass under, and perhaps I should be a little bit more careful. And I might just give that bit of a clean before I go sticking anything else on it. But as I say, it doesn't really matter, because I'm going to be covering that up anyway. So let's just give that a clean, And then we'll find a paper trimmer. Since when have you seen me use a paper trimmer on a live? Well, that's interesting, isn't it? You live and learn something. So the laser actually dries reasonably well on the glass and reasonably permanent. There we are. That's better. That's now lifting. That's clearly the wetter side. And that's what I was expecting. So I think if you let it dry properly, it might be a little bit more redder. But that's not what I want. But I do want to add a piece of paper into here before I do very much else. And that requires me to find a ruler. And who would have thought me in a ruler? Anyway, and I can touch that back up. So let me go for this. So, so that gap is 12.5 centimeters by just inconsiderately 8.2 centimeters. I mean, who knew? 8.2. So I have a piece of paper here. It's a piece of scrapbook paper. It comes from Songs of the Sea collection, but any scrap of paper will work just fine. And somewhere around, I do have a paper trimmer. There we are. Hopefully there might happen to be a thing in here. So this is a standalone piece of 12 by 12. Some period do papers that you can buy singly as well as in the packs. And the single ones, used ones, have an extra strip, which of course is very usable. We've got other bits that you can use, so I'll pop that over there. And so I want a piece that's 8.2 centimeters, just to be difficult. 8.2 centimeters. Let's just get, and of course 12 by 12 papers are often not entirely accurate. There we are, 8.2. 12.5. And because I don't necessarily like the back of that, I'm going to double these up and add a little bit of ink. That's the joy, isn't it? But there we are. I've got plenty of paper. These are scraps left over. And then if anything shows through my box, that will hold it all together. So I have some ordinary paper craft glue. Well, I did have some ordinary paper craft glue. As ever, that's where it is. So let us just use some of this. Is the Pentacolor Express glue because it sets really quickly and will hold metal to glass to resin pieces to things. You just need to push it into place and then not move it for a minute or so, and it will be stuck solidly, which is always cool. There we are. So we'll just line those two up, which will give this a little bit more strength. I could have put it onto some stone paper or Tyvek and then sandwich that. That would equally work. But that's going to give me a thicker piece that will work for covering everything up. And let me just move that down a little bit so we're back better on there. I've had to put my lights on tonight because last week, of course, when I was live, we had the light disappeared partway through as it's getting to be that time of the year. So this is the Stamperia archival ink pad in brown. They are still available, certainly in the UK. I suspect they might be elsewhere as well. They were bought out by Vicky Papineau, but she hasn't had a new collection for a while. But there we are. So there we are. So now we have a piece of paper that we've decorated. I'm going to pop that inside there, squash that into place. That can hold that Actually, that's not what I want to do. I wish to put the glass in first. And it doesn't matter that it's smeared. Then I'm going to pop that in there. The glass is going to hold that steady. That can go into there. And then I can pop these pieces to hold everything in place. And then if I ever wanted to, I can just lift that paper out, which is also always just cool, isn't it? Let me just tidy that up. So that will be the inside of the box. And when I get that out, I will carry on and do that, which is cool. Hi, Janice. Okay. So that is the front, that is the back. So that is that part of this done. Are we going to leave the box completely plain? Of course we're not. Of course we're not. That would be far too simple, wouldn't it? Of course it would. There we are. So, don't want stick away. I want stick and stay. Can I find my stick and stay stencil spray? Of course. Stick and spray. So I have a, that's not good. Let us just remove the lid of that, because it's disappeared off my spray. Well, let's just not worry about the stencil spray then. Why not? So this is Loft Spackle. It's a paste that's quite tacky, and mine's clearly has been open a wee while, and it will dry with a greyish hue, but can be coloured if that's what you want. So there we are. So I have a stencil. Now I've chosen again from Songs of the Sea, but you do you. Let's just pop that into there, line it up reasonably well along there. There's a reason why we have lots of, why it's good to have lots of stencils. There we are. Don't need masses of that, so let's just pop that onto there. Pop a little bit more of that onto there. Yeah, I definitely think I might be going live direct to page in future. Oh, she says, having pushed her stencil, her palette knife completely under the stencil there. My bad. There we are. Let's just add a little bit of detail onto there. There we are. Excellent. So let's just move that round. Pop that approximately into there. Why not? Doesn't need to be exactly the same. Stay. And I can do the back off the live, because clearly if I do it on the live while this lot is wet, I might just have a bit of a headache with squashing what I've done. There we are. I'll put that onto there. That there. Oh. There we are. So we're just adding some extra detail onto here. We'll do the 3 sides, because why not? There we are. Put that there. And then we'll give this a little bit of a clean. As I say, the back, which is the back, I've just double checked, I can do off the live before I pop it together. There. Always adds to the fun of life, doesn't it? So that can go over there. That can go there. We'll lid that quite happily. Pop that over there. Oh, that was intelligent, wasn't it? Of course it was intelligent. Fortunately, it hasn't made a mess of that. And then let's just pick up a cloth and wipe that. Pop that over there. It will dry quite quickly. That can go there. And then I am going to vaguely look after my stencil by giving it a jolly good wipe clean. There we are. Because that's always helpful. Let's just clear that mess. Nothing's gone through. There we are. Excellent. So that can now go out of the side. So that's 2 steps done. And then we have a large number of moulds, which I'm just going to randomly put into 3 piles. And then I'll show you the mould. And it won't take forever to do these, ladies, so don't be too worried about it. So this is the mould that I've got. I think it comes from Venice City of Arts, but I think it will work because it's got lots of coins in it. Yeah, it's definitely getting dark. So let me just grab what I want. Let's go for 4 piles. Why not? Why not? Why not? So I have 4 of the metallic wall lasers. I've got gold, red copper, green silver, and antique copper. So let's just go with, there we are, pile 1. And then I'll stick those over there, out of the way for the moment. And let's just grab a brush. And we're going to have some sloppy painting. Because why not? It doesn't really matter, does it? It doesn't matter. These. So I've painted these on the correct size, all black, with black primer paste, so that, because these definitely work better. Metallics just do work better on a dark surface. And I could wipe these back, but actually I'm going to use these almost as a paint today on these. So we're thinking ancient coins. Do I want the word Paris on this piece? No, I don't. Am I going to cover it up? Yes, I am. And clearly that's not going to be at the bottom of the sea, but it's not going to, it really isn't going to take us. It'll have rotted if it was at the bottom of the sea, but there we are. We don't have to be. You can see how good a coverage you get with those lasers. And I thought this was a good opportunity to show several of the colours. I love the cream, the pearly white. That is beautiful. But the metallics also work really nicely. There we are. And we can age these. So it's really not. And this is going to allow me to let the lost spackle on the box dry on its own a little bit. And we will be adding some extra to that. So it's not going to stay deadly white, but it does need to dry. There we are. See, that almost says AU, which is the short form on the periodic table for gold, isn't it? AG being silver, argentium, and AU, not sure what that is, but it's definitely gold. There we are. Let me say, this is not going to, although there's lots of pieces, this is not intricate painting tonight. It really isn't going to take very long. So that is the gold. This is antique copper. So let's just mix these colours up. Have I used all of these? Of course I have. There we are. So if I pop the 2 side by side, you can see that they're different. Because coins are different colours, aren't they? Of course they are. Are these real coins? Of course they're not. Not at all. Not at all, at all, at all. don't know of any other way of doing this without, apart from picking them up each piece up with my hand and and getting messy fingers, but that's okay. It's really not a problem. Really not a problem at all, at all. There we are. So currently, it looks like Facebook is behaving. I did an hour about going straight to Facebook, to StreamYard, but then you don't have the banner that tells me what I'm doing and who, and who I am on it, and that might be a bit more of a problem. So that is the antique gold. So gold, antique, I'll pop those over there out of harm's way. This is the red copper, which is quite a different colour. There we are. Is it really copper? Perhaps not. But there we are. It's called red copper. So we're going to, and of course I've got it mixed in with other colours. So on my brush, so we maybe not get an entirely accurate colour to start with, but it is a beautiful rich colour. Let's put that on over there so that we don't have two big pieces in one colour. I think that will work better. There we are. I will wash my hands for the brush for the last one, and then we can give all of these, as I say, it's not, I think it's not going to take a silly amount of time. It's always helpful, isn't it? Of course it's always helpful. There we are. Because sometimes you need projects that are quick. So one of the things, like with doing a Facebook Live, is that we're tasked with doing them in approximately an hour. Well, fortunately, it's not pleased by anyone, but I don't think that a live that takes ridiculous numbers of hours would go down well, because we've all got other things to do in the middle of the week, and doing other things. Thank you, Sarah. Really appreciate it. Let's just shove that mucky brush into there. So, and then I can pop that over there. And I'm going to clean my hands and grab a cleaner brush. Yeah. Clean brush, because why not? There we are, she says, off the floor. Pick up a clean brush. And then we can go to the greenish silver, which is really a really good silver colour. But you can see, I think, just how well these work as paints, even though they are stains, and they will add a shimmer to your pieces. So that, to me, doesn't have a hint of green in it. It's definitely silver. There we are. So I cast most pieces in that big mold, twice. Obviously, the big icons I only cast once, but there's lots of different pieces in that mold. And there are Chinese coins, there are euros, there are coins that I don't recognise, there are coins that say cents, so that could be European or American. So most countries, there aren't any pounds, but that's okay. Doesn't really matter, does it? There we are. So we can pop those onto there, and as I say, I'm just really using this as a paint over the surface, and these are going to need a good blast dry, and then we're going to be adding low lights onto them in appropriate colours to age the different coins as if they were gold, copper and silver, because why not? Let's take some of the excess paint off those so that we're not spending forever having to get all of those dry. And I know, good evening, Julie. Thank you. I saw that you were on a live a little bit earlier on, Julie. Have you bought? Don't mention the name, just say me yes or no. There we are. And the rain has started, ladies. Joy. And I have a feeling that I have washing outside. Oh, Joy, never mind. And my lovely husband won't have realised. And anyway, with this dementia, because he's now been diagnosed with dementia, he won't have even remembered that he put it out. There we are. There we are. So there we are. There we are. Let me just clean the mess off my hands, and then we'll. I'm going to say I will. Yeah. See, it really does. That there is so much mica in these that they will. Any mica on anything shifts and fixes. Let me guess. That would be a mold. Would it by any chance? Though I have to say, I've seen a sneaky peek on a reel from Omar that looks like there might just be a need mold on coming up. Let's just give this box a little bit of a dry. Yeah, need to get constant. So whilst this lot is drying, I don't think we're going to be live here till the next one. Looking at speed. So this is, maybe not the because I haven't had to spend ages painting all of those pieces. Thank you, Sarah. Yes, I'm afraid he has been diagnosed with having dementia, so my life is a bit upside down. I've known that there's been something wrong for a wee while, and we have had the diagnosis confirmed, which is also traumatic. So there we are. Thank you, Sheila. Yeah, at the moment I can carry on and do things like this reasonably well. If it becomes a problem, I'll talk to the team at Pentacolor about changing the time, maybe. Let's just get this as dry as possible. I need to have this. Oh, good. That feels like that might be dry. Yeah, good. So we've got some golds that need darkening with a brown. We have some silvers that need darkening with a black. And we have some coppers, or old golds and things that need patinaing. So let us swap from those to the walrus colours. Remember, I used the Umbra. Do I want the Bordeaux? No, I do not want the Bordeaux. What have I done with the Umbra? That's it. That's the one I want. Bordeaux is a beautiful red. There we are. So let us just grab 1, 2, 3, 4 brushes. Let's pop these out the way. So let's start out with the Umbra. So this is the colour that I used to on the box for staining it. Okay, so let's just add in some of this. And I know you're saying, you've just painted that all gold. You've just dried it, and now you're slapping another lasur over the top. Yeah, I am. Listen to that rain. Hi, Harry. We will need a few of these tonight, I think. So let me just grab a few more of those and put them where I can more easily grab them. There we are. So this time I'm just going to wipe back, because I don't necessarily want this to be really bright gold. I want it to look a bit more ancient. There we are. So. I won't do too many of these all in one go, because once this is dry, it doesn't lift off. Though I can actually give it a good spritz with some water, and that will help move stuff around a little bit, I think. There we are. Let's just take some of that, wipe off. So my coins then become a bit more ancient, if that makes sense. Well, someone's busy on WhatsApp wanting me, aren't they? There we are. You can see how these change, and that's now become a bit more ancient as opposed to vibrant gold. And I might be taking off some of the gold underneath because it's not fully dry. If you are worried about taking the back, all of the gold off, then put the primer, the deep primer over it will work as a varnish. But for me, that's giving me the look that I'm quite happy with for this, for purposes of an ancient coins. There we are. All at different stages of aging, but that's okay. I can cope totally with that. There we are. So the lasers are designed for you to be able to layer and lift. That's the whole purpose of them. Is to add. You can add gentle shimmer if you want to, and more details if you don't. There we are. So Umbra can now be lidded. There we are. That can go over there. Yuck. Will I get rid of that lot over to there, out of harm's way? Pop that into there. I'm going to actually do the silver next, and that's with the black. So that really is an inky black, isn't it? But this is, again, the coloured lasur, because tarnished silver is black, isn't it? Well, it is in my head. You may think differently, but to my mind, tarnished silver is black. So I'm hoping that at the end of this, we'll have learnt how to antique distress, age our different metallic colours, so that we've got old metallic colours, and that way we don't have to have as many metallic paints on the side as we otherwise might, because it all adds up, doesn't it, to our precious pot. So that was there. So let's just wipe that off. That's better. Let me just give that a little. So it's now looking definitely more tarnished, less clean, which is fine. That's the look I was wanting. So if I pop those against that, no lasur, where versus one that's had that and the black lacer on it. So it definitely looks much more like a coin that has, you know, been left and abandoned for a bit. Clean your, yeah, but as I say, don't let this dry before you wipe it off, because you won't wipe it off if you do. I think we might treat ourselves to a clean one of those. There we go. And I did, to be fair, and ah about doing some of this off the live, but then ran out of time for assorted reasons, because I'm also having to get myself sorted out and a bit fitter than I was. And that's requiring me tackling the gym, you know, that place that we all love to hate. There we are. So we're going to have ancient coins. And if I want to, I can add some more silver. You know, I can always add silver, you know, waxes over the top. I'm thinking ancient and aged and distressed, not clean. So for me, it doesn't actually matter. But, you know, because that's the look that I was going for, is ancient and distressed. But if you want it to be less ancient or bright colours, then just don't, you know, miss this step out entirely, of course. There we are. You can see how robust the lasers are, though, that paint, you know, whereas if I tried to rub like this without a varnish with some of the other products that I use, I'd be lifting it all off. Hello, Sylvie. Lovely lady from Paint Artist now watching what we're doing. So yes, I have a message that's on StreamYard saying there might be a problem, but so thus far I haven't had. But maybe it's time to start just going back and going direct to page in future. I do not know. I certainly got far more views last week having gone direct to page. So let's just pop that, the black antique lacer, onto there. Pop that off. That's not gone on properly. I can feel it hasn't. That's it. Come on, lid it properly, woman. Because if you don't, there we are. That has gone on properly. Okay, so that's that. There we are. So we have two different colours here. So let's just take the patina blue, which is a vibrant turquoise. She says, I hear you talking. I hear you go, that's a bit bright. I'm inclined to agree. So I'm just going to give that a little bit of a spritz with some water, which will help settle this down, help it spread, get into the nooks and the crannies, but will be a bit more subtle. There we are. And now I can dab that off there. So it's less aged. Pop those over there. Just take a little bit of that off. There we are. Pop those over there. Pop that over there. I might just add a little bit more onto those. There we are. So we've got that. I will need that one out again in a minute. Oh, I think it's what you like, Sarah. I think it has to be what you like. And this is that beautiful patina green that we all know I sort of really love. So let's just on that red copper. And we'll tackle that with the same lightness. There we are. So that they're not all the same. Sitting in the nooks and the crannies where it's aged. Excellent. Right. Don't knock those off the table. So let's just pop those over there, over there, over there, and then pop this here. So here is the box, and I don't want it to be quite so samey. So I'm just going to give this a little spray. And we're going to add some of the two different colours. So we've got bits poking through. So it looks a bit more ancient. That dark is too dark, so let's just add some more of this. Because I want all of the colours to be shining through. And if I just dab, I'm going to get some hints of colours, some aged effects. Hi, Debbie. And oops, she says. There we are. And then we can mop off what we don't want. But it's just muting it all down, making it all a bit more, don't like that white. Got more areas that I, there we are. And I can always pop my stencil on top of here later on and add some wax back over. So you do you. And the back I will do off the live. There we are. So it's now no longer stark white. We've got some ancient colours working on there. And let's just add some colour around the top of there. And that's fine. You don't have a worry about that. So I'm going to pop a piece of paper in here after the live, ladies. That's the front. That's the front. So let me just give this box lid a little bit of a shape. So it's not, so it looks vaguely like the back of it, the rest of it. That is going to go onto there. Right, next step for our treasure box, apart from putting everything together, is for me to relid these. Sarah, I just can't, my darling. I just don't have enough time because I am having to do an awful lot more caring for my lovely husband, and it's a challenge to do Facebook Lives in multiple places, partly because of the amount of prep, but also because of the time involved. So we've got all of these pieces, none of which are completely dry. So let's just give these all a bit of a blast. When I can, I will, but I'm certainly not committing to doing it on a regular basis. I just don't have the capacity. And my lovely friend has opened a shop recently, so I'm trying to do samples for her. And amongst everything else. Right, excellent. So we're now, like everything, I'm going to place the biggest components onto here. Okay. I don't have to have them covering everything. I can see that that's wobbling, and it's going to need something tucked underneath it to stop it wobbling. So we're going to be doing some gluing of pieces onto the glass. Now the joy of the gel medium means that I can move it around and I can pop extra in, and I can tuck under and over. So that's always a positive. Okay, so that can go there, that can go onto there, that can go there. I'm deliberately popping the big pieces in first, okay, because it's just going to make life easier for me. If I pop that there, hopefully, so I can now pop that onto there. So the gel medium is going to hold these nicely in place, and I can tuck more in as I want to. And I'm going to pop that other big piece in over here, and it can have a little bit, go on a little bit of a wonk, and I've got a space underneath there. So that's cool. So we're just going to pile our pieces. That's clearly not going to work there, woman. So let's just tuck that one into there, and then we can stick a square piece into there. And now I did have all of these pieces on this box, and they don't have to all be up the right way. Of course they don't. There we are. Because that's just part of life, isn't it? Let's just stick that one onto there. Let's just turn that round so it's vaguely the right way. Let's just pop. That one can go into there. There we are. Am I sort of thinking about what I'm doing? Yeah. Am I worried about where I'm popping all these places? Absolutely not. I've got masses of pieces I can pop on. Doesn't need to be. I can have a tidy up of all of this pesky gel medium, because it will make a mess and it will dry white, and I don't necessarily, because it is the heavy body gel matte. That's fine. I can always give it a spritz with Lisseur later on, so that's okay. Let's just add another piece of that. There we are. Let's just stick that into there. Let's just, that little one is definitely going to sit neatly into there with its L on it. So that little one can go into there. Let's just shuffle it forward a little bit. And it's just then a question of filling up the spaces, because why not? So we've got bits poking out as if these have all been abandoned. There we are. like a treasure chest, really, isn't it? All of the different pieces. Let me just have a little clean. There we are. I said I didn't want the it's just a wet brush that I've got there to pick up some of that loose gel medium. This will all dry perfectly well and solid once I stop messing and pushing at it. But there we are. I've got bits that are poking that way through, in and out, which is okay. There we are. Let's get rid of that. There we are. Oh, she says, dropping pieces. There we are. It's going to look like a fairly full treasure chest, isn't it, by the time we've finished poking all of these pieces in. Now you can see why I wasn't worried about the imagery on that top piece, because clearly I knew I was going to be stacking and covering all of these extra bits in. There we are. Get rid of that. So this is when having all of those different shapes. You might have looked at that mould and think, really, do you really need that many bits and pieces? Are you really going to need to use all of those shapes of different pieces? But actually, when you start layering like this, having all of the different sizes really does make a huge, huge difference. There we are. Am I going to? I think that's too big. Let's see what we've got. Do I want another piece? I think I'm going to pop that one onto there. I just prefer the colour. If the ladies were wondering why I changed my mind as to what I was doing. There we are. Let's just tuck that so it's vaguely round the right way. No, it's going to... Yeah, I am going to sit that one up onto there. Oh! She says, throwing it on the floor. Because that's what you do, isn't it? I'm going to need a bigger blob in the middle of there because there's a gap. So I'm going to pop that over. I'm going to turn that one round. There we are. Okay. Yeah. I think we might just end up with one spare. Yeah, excellent. So I just need a little bit of clean up with some of that gel medium that's underneath there. That's not bad. So if I lift this up, we have our treasure chest covered pretty much with things. If I lift the lid off, it's now quite heavy, I can assure you. And lifting it off tells me I need a little bit of a clean there and there. Let me just wipe some of that off. The problem is I don't want to be adding too much water. There we are. Leave those. So my ancient coins, all at various stages of neglect and aging. And then we have our distressed box, which I might add some wax to when it's properly dry, but at the moment it's not properly dry. So I'm going to put a piece of paper into there. I will let that all set. See, there's definitely needs a little bit extra gel medium at the bottom of there. To fit that into there. You see, the more you tinker, the more you find, the more you want to do. There we are. There we are. So there we have our treasure box. And I have used, essentially, I have used no acrylic paints on this at all. This has all been done with the wall decor products, using a mixture of the antique and the metallics, plus a little bit of lost spackle for the texture on the side of the box. So I will add some off spackle to the back of the box when everything is dried in place, pop it all together, add a piece of paper to the base, and then we'll pop it up on my social media pages once I've done that. So I hope that that is okay for everyone. Thank you for joining me this evening. Next week's live depends on when I get the new Stamperia products. They are going live to order tomorrow at retailers, so with a bit of luck I will have them, but it may just be that it's an alternative project for next week, and the week after will definitely be with some of the new products from Stamperia, but I hope that I will be able to use them next week. Thank you very much for watching. Please be kind to yourselves, because if you're not kind to yourself, then who it's not helpful for other people. And really, we're often very unkind to ourselves. And in the meantime, ladies, take care, and I shall see you soon. Bye.